Welcome back to the shop and to the channel. We have succeeded in getting all of the felt wicks run in the saddle so we can start getting it reassembled. Before we get to that, I just want to again thank all of those of you that have subscribed to the channel. It really does mean a lot to see the channel actually growing in numbers. And for those of you that would like to support the channel in other ways, there's some links down in the description, and it would really mean a lot if you would at least consider it. Before we put the saddle back on the knee, there's a few things I want to take care of here first. And the first bit is to reinstall the Rapid Traverse clutch cover. I don't think that there's oil that gets pumped into this area, but there might be. And in the off chance that there is, I'm going to go ahead and seal up this cover with some Permatex. Off camera, I removed the oil pump from the knee. This is a separate oil pump from that which is in the column, and this provides the lubrication to all of the gears and everything inside the knee. The oil pump in the knee looks like a couple of gears that mesh together, and that pulls in oil from the sump and runs it through all of the oil lines. And once again, I'm using some Permatex here on the covers just to eliminate any potential leaking. The vent here in the side of the knee was so caked over with paint that it wasn't being a vent at all. And you couldn't even tell that it was a separate piece from the casting. Reassembling the oil sight glass here now. This window here provides two purposes. One, it establishes the level of the oil in the sump in the knee here, and it also confirms oil flow. You will see the oil come out of that little spout at the top, and that lets you know that the pump is working as expected. Well, the knee oil pump is always on whenever the machine is on. So with the power feed unit not in the knee, I can turn it on and test to make sure that oil is flowing through these lines properly. And that is not good. I should have oil coming out of this copper tube over here on the left, as well as there's another one that comes up over to the right. So I'm going to have to look at clearing out these oil lines. oil from the pump comes into the back of the knee here, looks like, and then there's a manifold that has a couple of copper lines attached to it. I'm going to remove those and see if I can't clear them out. And if I can't, I'll try to look at replacing them. Jeez, what the heck? I'll get these oil lines taken out of the knee here and then run some acetone through them, maybe some pipe cleaners, and see if we can't clear that up. I'll do that off camera. So with the oil lines cleared out, I put this plastic in front of here because I know it's going to be a mess. And yeah, that's much more like it. I have oil coming out of the 2 copper lines that will lubricate part of the power feed unit. Right now, the lubricant that's in the knee is mostly kerosene with some 30 weight oil mixed in. I'll probably run this for a while until I feel good that the knee is good and clean, or at least as clean as I can get it. And the sight glass here is showing that the oil pump is working, so that's good. Well, also before I can put the saddle back on, I need to reassemble this crossfeed bracket. This has the nut in it for the saddle itself, as well as some gearing for the table power feed. This is another piece of this machine that fell victim to water and rust. This gear is extremely pitted. The companion gear that's inside the bracket, I couldn't get this one out, is also fairly well pitted. I don't think it's going to pose any problem other than maybe some extra noise that I don't want. And of course I am using some Permatex here on this surface just to prevent any leaks, because there is lubricating oil that will make its way into here. And this is the nut for the saddle, and it was in really good shape. I didn't see anything wrong with it, so we can go ahead and just reinstall it with the original hardware. On either side of the crossfeed bracket are these telescopic brass tubes, and these just protect the spline shaft that runs through here that comes out of the power feed bracket and into the knee. I feel fortunate that these actually were still on the machine. A lot of machines I've seen at auctions and other places, these tubes are often missing. I don't know where they end up or how they end up coming off the machine or why they're even taken off the machine, but I feel great that this one's still here. That's not to say that these tubes weren't without problem. This one here, the small end, there should be a flange or something on the end of that that captures it into the front of the knee here. It was missing, so there's really nothing to hold that tube into the knee. So what I did end up doing was put some RTV sealant inside the fixture that it feeds into in the knee. And once it dries, that should be enough to keep it there. The telescoping sections on the back of this bracket, I wasn't able to actually remove them from the column, from the power feed takeoff bracket, so I left them in place. They're just held on the back here with 4 screws. There's a couple of bits that we need to install in the saddle before I can put it back on the knee, so we need to take care of that first. And all of those bits revolve around this table power feed lever. This is the shaft for that table power feed lever. That little gear on the bottom of the shaft drives this, that's called a table feed detent. And there's some notches on the right side of this detent in which a spring-loaded plunger sits in. So when you turn the handle, it'll click into one of these 3 different notches, kind of giving you that sort of positive indication, and it holds the handle there. So then this yoke here has a notch in the bottom of it that sits over top of that little drive dog. When you operate the lever left or right, that yoke then engages the right gear to make the table move left or right. We'll start some of this reassembly by getting the table detent installed. I'll slide this into the inside of the saddle and try to get it lined up over the hole for the shaft. That table detent then rides on this brass shaft that's driven in from the top. I'm putting everything together here as if it was in its neutral position. So I've got that detent rotated so that when the plunger meets it, it's going to be in the center notch. And then behind the plunger, we could slide on this spring, and then there's this cap that goes over top of it. Next to go in is the table trip lever shaft. Now this has to go in from the bottom of the saddle. There's no other way to insert it. Originally, when I took this apart, there was a plug on the bottom of the saddle that I actually had to drill a hole in order to get it out, because there was no easy way to remove it. I have the saddle propped up on a piece of wood to give me enough room to slip this shaft with the pinion on it up through the bottom and then out through the top of the saddle. I disassembled the trip lever so I could get it all put back together. So this center piece is separated, goes over the shaft, and then there's a taper pin that holds the block onto the shaft. This pin has to be nice and flush on both sides, otherwise the trip lever won't fit over top of it. And that feels pretty good. The detent is hitting in the correct notches. You can see how as I move the lever back and forth in this angle might be a little better, where you can see how that pinion shaft operates that other detent and where the plunger fits in. The next thing I need to do here is to fill this access plug that I removed in order to get that pinion shaft out. As I mentioned before, I needed to drill out the old one in order to remove it. I suppose I could have beat on that pinion shaft and pushed out the plug with it, but that didn't seem like a good option. Easy enough for me to go ahead and turn on the lathe and machine up a new plug. Well, we're finally ready to put this saddle back on the knee. Of course, I'll put down a liberal amount of oil here first. I do need to lift up this right side of the saddle so I can move the crossfeed bracket up underneath and to line up the dowel pins with the holes in the saddle. And this crossfeed bracket attaches to the saddle with 3 socketed cap screws. Next up is the saddle gib. I'll slide it in from the front and then set the front adjusting screw in part way. I'll adjust these front and rear screws so there's no side-to-side play in the saddle, but it still moves back and forth freely. I'll probably have to revisit this again once the machine settles. I can install the trip stud now for the saddle power feed. It just goes up inside this hole and then is set in place with a dog point set screw. Well, next is the saddle lock. The clamp rod goes into this hole on the side. It's a little bit of a tight fit, so we'll tap it in here with a brass punch. The next piece to fit in is this little eccentric. It's like a mini cam. The hole is off-centered, and as it rotates, it puts pressure on that saddle clamp rod. And this set screw then holds the eccentric in place on this saddle lock lever. And in normal operation, the saddle will move back and forth really nicely, but when I engage the lock toward the rear, it should keep it in place. Well, I think that's going to do it for this video. Well, and if you like this video and maybe just even a little bit, you'd hit that like button. That really does help the channel. It lets YouTube know that there might be other people out there that would enjoy watching this too. And don't forget to leave a comment. I do read all of the comments on the videos. I don't always get a chance to reply to them all, but I do read them, and I try to take that feedback in a constructive way to help me make more videos that you might want to watch. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.